No, I am not turning into George Lucas. Hello, YouTube. This is Adam Noyce of AN Productions, and well, with all the chaos going on right now here at AN Productions and all that crap, me consolidating all of the pages, consolidating all of the YouTube pages, and consolidating a lot of the movie stuff all on Facebook and everything, I couldn't help but look back at both the copies of the script that I still have for the movies of the Zeek Trilogy and look at the movies himself, and I can't help but ask myself, man, what would I have done differently? Because there is a lot of stuff that I, in hindsight, would do differently, and I am in no way, shape, or form dissing my own movies, even though I hate Compound of Chaos, but, well, there, I just dissed it, so there, I just completely contradicted myself, but what? I was asking myself, you know what, Adam, if you had a chance to do these again, what would you do differently? And, well, that's what I want to talk about today. That's what I want to talk about here. Is what I would do differently with the Zeek Trilogy, and we're going to talk about each film, which consists of Forest of Blood, Lake of Death, and Compound of Chaos. And if you haven't seen these movies, they are up on YouTube, up on the Film Archives channel, which I will have linked in the description, hopefully, if I remember. So let us just dive right on into this mother humpa, and let's see what happens. So in Forest of Blood, right from the get-go, I would open with a flashback. And just like in the beginning of Compound of Chaos, it's in black and white. It would open with a flashback of a young Zeke holding his sister. I would say he would be about 10 years old during this scene. His sister would be a few years younger than him, but he's holding her back. I'm envisioning him peeking his head around the corner as you hear this fight going on just outside of the camera's range, and you hear this woman screaming, and the husband, and suddenly a fist punch or a slap to the face, and what they're seeing is Zeke's father beating up his mother. And I was gonna have a few, like, I could picture a few beer cans on the ground or something. And that's like he's witnessing, and then I can picture the camera just zooming in a little bit on Zeke's eyes, and then bam, we cut to the opening chase scene with him running away from all the creatures, and he still gets saved by Soap and JJ. That's the main crux of the Forest of Blood, and I was going to keep that. And I just want to say that the overall plot is still the same. You know, JJ becomes befriended by these two individuals, JJ and Soap, and they go out and do all the shit, they get together, they try to go to G8 Summit, so on and so forth. All that still remains the same. In fact, all three movies pretty much retain that same plot that I had written out, except I just expand on it a little more. Let's talk about some of the characters. Of course, Zeke is the main character, hence why it's called the Zeek Trilogy, but we have Soap. Soap, one of the differences right from the get-go in terms of his physical appearance is that he has the eye patch right from the get-go. It's always there. He doesn't receive it during the movie. It was just always there. And that was what I originally wanted, but to be honest, we kept forgetting about the eye patch, and so we quickly wrote in that he gets scratched in the eye and he gets it poked out or something. But here he has the eye patch from the beginning. He still is a former soldier. I describe him as he still wears that kind of red plaid jacket. I love that Ryan Marvin, the actor who played Soap in Forest of Blood, wore, because I loved that jacket and I thought it fit Soap. So he still has that. And he doesn't have any real backstory. I kept that very similar to actual Forest of Blood. It's never explained. And he's still the asshole of this story. But somewhere along the line, he's actually, when Zeke first meets Soap, when they bring him inside, when he brings the gun, I added in a line where Soap goes, "We can never take we can never take chances, which is a foreshadow to the end. Now, one of the bigger changes in here is, of course, JJ, who I played in Forest of Blood. And right from the get-go, I mean, I look older than what I am, but I still looked really young in that movie. Right from the get-go, I changed his age from like 30 to 40. He's actually in his late 40s, I describe it. And he's definitely more fatherly towards Zeek, where I would add a scene where he teaches Zeek how to split wood with an axe and teaches Zeek how to shoot. A very fatherly kind of figure. He basically teaches Zeek the basics in terms of surviving this creature apocalypse thing that's going on. And what happens is this creates a very father-son, a very set-in-stone father-son relationship between the two characters, which is present, I feel, throughout the trilogy that we actually made, but wasn't really at the forefront. I really want this to be the forefront, because this is why I wanted it to be such a huge deal when JJ finally bites the dust, because he turns into that father figure that Zeek never had, as established in the opening flashback. So I felt like that would be extremely important to set up this real kind of fatherly role model figure that I believe all people should have, and this is no exception. And because Zeek doesn't have really a father figure, he very much so gravitates towards JJ. I would also add in several scavenging scenes where they scavenge around, because I say in the script for Forest of Blood, I say they scavenge around and I just have them describe it. But no, I would actually show them scavenging around for food and bullets and supplies in nearby towns and so on and so forth, and I'd have them go there by this old car that JJ has, and that's how they get back and forth, at least for now, or walking. I haven't really decided, and it's not too important at this moment in time, but I would definitely add them, I'm sorry, they would definitely, one of the scavenging scenes, I think there'd be two. One, just to set up how they get their supplies and how they're doing, what they're doing, and how they're actually well kept, with all things considered, at this house. And two, the second one is when Zeek finds all the creatures just kind of hiding there like they've been hoarding. And of course, in my film, these creatures only come out at night at this time in the trilogy, so they're all kind of like in their sleep mode. And so Zeek runs back and finds Soap and JJ and says, "You're not going to believe this, they're everywhere," which turned out to be the one scene I cut out of Forest of Blood. I want to reinsert it here, and that leads into them barricading the house, of course. And then, of course, the epic final battle remains mostly the same. They sneak out and all this crap. They sneak out during the day, but it's so far they wind up going there at night. They go through the night. They just kind of fight. The only difference is I have all three characters surviving. Now, this is important. This is very important. Instead of them getting devoured by creatures, they all survive. However, when they're about to go to the G8 Summit gates, you actually kind of see a little bit of G8 Summit in this version. They are gunned down and mistaken for creatures because they're all covered in blood and grimy and all that crap, because they had just literally fought their way to get the G8 Summit. However, Zeek manages to live thanks to JJ. Zeek lives and is brought into the city. And while Zeek is losing his mind and crying, and everyone and some of the soldiers are kind of in shock of what they just did, a soldier takes Zeek in his arms and says, "We never can take chances," which brings that quote that Soap said at the very beginning of the movie full circle, and that would be the end of the movie. Now, Lake of Death, which is considered by my fans and considered by viewers as to be the best and most impressive one of the Zeek trilogy that I made, I do change a decent amount of it, at least in terms of the characters. Again, the plot, what little of it there is, since Lake of Death I find to be an extreme character piece, while the first one just establishes this universe and Compound of Chaos really is plot heavy, Lake of Death's little plot remains the same, where they're trying to go from point A to point B. They think they're going to go to an island and be a little secluded island, or be on that secluded island, and everything works, blah, 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 blah. And that's why it's called Lake of Death, is because they want to get to this lake so they can go to this island, blah, blah, blah. And that's how it works. But then again, I open this film with a flashback, and it starts off with a burning building, and you hear gunshots in the distance, and you can hear people screaming. You don't hear any creatures, but you hear people screaming. And as the camera pulls back slowly, this is all one shot, you see a silhouette of a man standing there with a bloody machete in his hand, right? And you can only see his black outline because there was so much light coming off of this fire. And again, this is in black and white. And then immediately cut to a frontal shot of him, and you see Zeek there. Now he looks much older and much angrier, and he has blood smeared across his face, and he looks just disgusted at whatever he's just seen. And then immediately it jump cuts to reality, and what we see is we get the opening scene of Peter and Fran walking out. Here's where a lot of the changes come in for the rest of this trilogy. Peter is JJ's age. I established this right now. And instead of Fran being his girlfriend like he is in the actual trilogy that I made, I changed it to that he is the father of Fran, and Fran is a 16-year-old girl. Now that is very, very, very important for the rest of the series. I describe Peter as being a very caring father. He almost shelters Fran a little too much. He has the same backstory as in Lake of Death, like that scene where Zeek and Peter are walking, and you see Fran in the background, but it's all one shot, are walking down this trail, and they're talking about where they came from in Waterville, Massachusetts, which is also where Godzilla destroys my Godzilla song. That's all there. That dialogue remains the same and everything like that. Peter is kind of like the same character, except replace him, instead of being a boyfriend, he's the father, and he's just very caring towards Fran. And he still gets bitten. In fact, that's the only reason why he's there, is to really be bitten and to bring some character development for Zeek and Fran. And instead, he actually has an extra scene with Zeek about watching over Fran. He has a scene describing his relationship with Fran, about him being the father and how much he loves Fran and blah 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 blah. And I felt like that was always lacking in hindsight from Lake of Death, so I was saying I would add in a scene there with just Zeek and Peter again. Now, as for Fran, I've already established that she is a 16-year-old girl. And she forms a brother-sister bond between her and Zeek. She is a little more feisty than she is in my movie of Lake of Death, where I feel like she's really a damsel in distress throughout the entire movie. Here, I want her to be kind of a little like she wants to fight and everything, but she really has no experience when it comes to dealing with creatures. While at this time, Zeek very much so has dealt with these creatures for quite a while, and Zeek teaches her how to shoot. So basically, he's kind of taken her under his wing. He's doing to her what JJ did to him, and that is kind of present there in my version, or in the version of Lake of Death that I wound up making, but it wasn't there in full force. So in hindsight, I wish I added more, and so I added it here. She still shoots Peter because he wants her to, and I describe it as very much so like the dilemma during the, spoiler alert, the ending of the Walking Dead game. The ending of the Walking Dead game, you have an ultimatum when the character that you play is about to die. You can either kill yourself, or you can have the little girl kill you for yourself, really. And that's what it does here, and that's how I describe the scene. It's very similar to that, and Fran winds up shooting Peter, and that's sort of, her eyes get open during that scene of just how ugly this new universe is, with all these creatures in this post-apocalyptic world. Archer remains the same, pretty much the same too. He has a mysterious backstory where we get hints of it here and there, and I'll be honest, I haven't completely worked it out, nor am I probably going to, but we get little hints by how he talks, just like in Lake of Death. In fact, if there's one thing I like about Lake of Death, is I love John Archer's character. And I would keep it mostly the same because he's just a few years older than Zeek. I describe Zeek as being in his early to mid-20s, so he'd be just a tad bit older than Zeek. Another thing that I'd change about Archer is quieter than in Lake of Death. He has almost no dialogue whatsoever. He's still an asshole, though. You can't have a Zeek Trilogy movie without the asshole of the group. And here's the big difference. He actually saves Zeek and Fran at the end. He's about to make a run for it and split, save himself, but he grows a soft spot for the two because he realizes, hey, they saved me once, I can, scratch their back too. Uh, and so he doesn't die. He isn't killed, or torn apart like he is in my version of Lake of Death, or in the version that's on YouTube. He doesn't die. He actually agrees to stick with the group. And then we have Zeek. Zeek doesn't shoot JJ because JJ dies in the beginning of Forest of Blood, but he's still haunted by the seeing JJ save him. And he feels ashamed for having Peter getting killed because he's like, oh, god damn it, I just killed somebody else, blah, 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 blah. But he still is very much so, like, his intro to this movie is technically a flashback, but, I'd still have the scene where Zeke, where Peter and Fran are looking for shelter, and they're like, and Peter goes, I've got this to protect us, and then all of a sudden you hear a voice go, that's not how you handle a gun, and Zeke comes in. That's going to be his true first appearance. I still have that there. So he's still the Toshiro Mifune leader character from the Lake of Death that I wound up making, and most of his scenes are still the same. I just want to say that straight, would be that Zeke would be relatively the same. And instead of this taking place during the winter, this takes place in the spring. And that's because I remember when I was originally trying to make this movie, I wanted to have zombies coming out of the water, but never could because we had to shoot it during winter instead of spring because of the time period that we were filming in. And this proves that the island would not have worked, because if they could walk on the water and basically swim across, then they've already infested the island as well. And it would also really bring home that these guys are at a lake, hence why the movie's called Lake of Death instead of it being frozen over like it is in my version of the film. Now, Compound of Chaos, in case any of you know, was production hell to say the least. So I have the most changes with this movie here, with the trilogy here. I basically my original intent with Compound was that the movie takes place over the course of 3 weeks, not several months. And due to the hell of production, I had to wind up changing it over several months instead of 3 weeks. So here I would retain that original timeline of 3 weeks. I would keep the same opening flashback and replace Zeke's brother there with his sister, which is what I originally intended to do, but unfortunately the actress who was going to play his sister did not come that day, so we had to change it to a brother instead. But instead here I would retain it that it was his sister, and he also still meets Brent, who is the doctor in this film. I would definitely establish a timeline that this takes place 2 years after Lake of Death, and Archer is in the opening scene when Zeke wakes up and everything. Archer is standing by a fire as snow falls. Zeke and Fran are sleeping inside. And then Archer decides to split with them. He says he's better off alone and that they have done a lot and that he's going on to look for further help. He knows roughly where Zeke and Fran are, so if he finds help, he will come back and find them. And they have their and he actually has an emotional goodbye with Zeke. And so what I wanted to establish here was that Zeke and Archer actually became really close friends, and that Archer had the best chance of finding somebody because, quite frankly, Archer is the most physically fit. As for the characters as a whole, now that Archer is gone, Brent Solis, he's still mysterious, like he's hiding something, and I kept him relatively the same as he was in my version of Lake of Death, except he's tall and skinny, not short and stocky. I originally wanted him to be an extremely tall and skinny character, but that didn't work out, and we had to use what we had. And he would definitely have the same backstory and the same sort of relationship with Zeke as he did in that version of the movie. He's a little quieter than in the version that I have, though. Oh, sorry, that was the wrong guy. Let's talk about Vince Elliott. I'm bringing back that he's secretly gay. As all of you know that have seen the trilogy and seen my controversial documentary, Ingenuity and Duct Tape, I explained that the character who played Vince did not like the fact that his character was gay, so I wrote it out. So I wrote out all the hints and everything like that. But I wanted to bring that back here, and he has fallen in love with Brent. And I would retain that and bring it back here. It would add another level, and in my opinion, it would add another level of complexity with Vince Elliott. He's quieter than he is in my version of Compounded Chaos. Here, he would be a lot quieter. Instead of him interjecting his opinions like he does in the Compounded Chaos Don't Want It Being Made, here he just stands in the shadows a lot more. He always jumps to Brent's aid, even if he thinks Brent is wrong, and that's very important because of his secret backstory for his feelings towards Brent. Excuse me. Now, Caden and Liara's relationship, they are in a more open relationship than they are in the Compounded Chaos that we actually made. Here they're in a more open relationship. When they returned with wounded Zeek, Liara openly kisses Caden right in front of Brent, and is relieved that they have come back mostly intact, that they've come back alive. And Vince notices the look on Brent's face because Brent still has feelings towards Liara and blah 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 blah. That's how it all works. Another thing that I would change is that in the movie Compounded Chaos, it just kind of cuts to Zeek kind of having nightmares of that tape that he heard, which I'm still having here in this movie that takes place somewhere in between Lake of Death and this film. But I'm going to bring back the whole car ride and replace it with that scene. Instead, it's shot completely from Zeke's POV, and it's just one shot, and there'd be a shit ton more blood. Unfortunately, we didn't have much blood the day that we filmed the scene where Zeke gets really hurt and he steps on a landmine. We didn't have much blood, but we used what we could. Here, I definitely bring back the blood and the gore. Now, this is the biggest difference, and if I had to keep everything else in Compounded Chaos exactly the same, but could only change one thing, it would be this here. There is no romance between Zeek and Fran. There is none. I rue the day, when I said, yeah, they're going to fall in love. No, I wish they never did, and that is my biggest regret. My biggest regret with Compounded Chaos. It is hands down my biggest regret. Instead, here, they've become really, really close friends. They maintain that older brother, younger sister kind of relationship, where they have each other's backs. They're just good friends. And they stand back to back during the final battle and everything like that. Now, Zeek still has the dream with JJ, where JJ comes to speak with him, except here JJ is completely silent, as if Zeek can hear him in his mind. So instead of where in the movie where JJ talks to Zeek and tells him that what he's going to do is going to be fine and everything like that, JJ will be completely silent, other than how would you know when Zeke goes, how do you know I'll make the right decision, and JJ turns around and all of a sudden you hear JJ whisper, because you're still alive. That would still be there. And everything like that. And also Zeke still kills Brent. The confrontation scene remains the same. Zeek is also more rational in this version. He's not losing his fucking mind like I had him do in Compounded Chaos. He's definitely more rational. He doesn't fuck up by bringing the creatures down to Brent either. When Vince goes, we need an extra hand when they bring the creatures down, he doesn't fuck up. What happens there is that, and also his reaction is different too. I described his reaction as different. He doesn't freak out. He's not happy that the creatures are there. He actually understands because of the work that Brent is doing. He understands. He doesn't like it, but he understands. Instead of Caden getting bit after Zeke fucks up during that scene, Caden gets bit in the woods on a scouting mission, and Vince cuts off his arm and rushes him back to the compound, where they have the scene where they char his wound up, and they basically kind of save him with serum. He actually, and the number one thing that Zeke does is he actually saves the day instead of fucking killing everyone like he does in Compounded Chaos. He actually saves the day, and that's actually very important. Everyone manages to live except Brent and Vince. They both die the same ways as they do in the movie Compounded Chaos. I'd remain that the same. But Liara, Caden, Fran, and Zeke, they managed to live. Now, everyone knows that kind of fuck you ending I put in on Compounded Chaos with the door opening and then it cuts to black. Well, that's still kind of there, except I expand upon that ending. We still have that car. The car, though, is replaced with an armored World War II half-track, because that would be fucking awesome. Who can deny that? And I can just picture, like, a soldier standing there with a 50 caliber machine gun, just scanning the area and shooting what's left of the creatures that are around the flaming compound. But when the door opens, we see who it is, and it's Archer. I'm having Archer and two other troops walk out to greet Zeek and his crew. And Archer has fulfilled his promise. He's like, I know roughly where you are. I will find you. Basically, what this is Archer has found help, and they're willing to reach out, giving the audience a sense of hope instead of a sense of dread, as we got in the last two movies almost. I wanted that sense of hope. I actually wanted a happy ending, quite frankly. And then Zeke hands the cure to Archer before he basically falls asleep in the back of the half-track. And then the shot as the half-track drives away as the compound walls fall over and crumbles as the flames consume the rest of the building and the creatures still give chase to the half-track. And then it would cut to the end card, and then the end credits would roll. So that is what I do differently with my Zeek Trilogy. I hope you enjoyed. Please leave comments or suggestions down in the video, or down in the comment sections below. I would like to hear what you guys think. I would like to hear you guys' suggestions and so on and so forth. I mean, there's probably a 90% chance that this will never happen, but you know, in case there is, it would be nice to be prepared. Hit the like button, subscribe. Go on Facebook, like my new movie, Which Way They Walk, on Facebook. Hit the like button, like AN Productions, like the Sons of Sarazawa home page network thingy McJigger on Facebook. Subscribe to the Godzilla Saga here on YouTube. And, man, thank you for listening, and this is Adam Noyce of AN Productions saying, sayonara.